Lemuria, a lost civilization said to have had an all-out war with none other than the lost city of Atlantis.
Where did the legend of Lemuria come from, and is there any truth to it?
The concept of the lost continent of Lemuria was first introduced to the world in 1864 by a man named Philip Sclater, a lawyer and zoologist who divided the world into 6 main zoogeographic regions based on the distribution of animal species. These regions were the Palearctic, Ethiopian, Australasian, Nearctic, and the Neotropical regions, which was all good and well until Sclater noticed something strange: lemur fossils in India, as well as Madagascar, but not in nearby Africa or the Middle East. Seeing as identical species don't develop in 2 different places at once and lemurs can't swim, Philip theorized that the lemurs must have found their way to their various homes some other way, perhaps a large landmass or land bridge connecting Madagascar to India before eventually becoming swallowed by the seas, a landmass he later decided to name Lemuria in honor of the animals that sparked it in the first place.
So there's actually an entire school dedicated to the existence of Lemuria and what is referred to as the Lemurian philosophy. The school is found on this piece of land near Ramona, California, and is called the Lemurian Fellowship. I checked out the website, and there are some aspects to the lessons that are a bit more esoteric and seemingly inapplicable in real life. You know, teaching about reincarnation. One lesson called the New Order, quote, takes the student into the future some 800 years after Armageddon for a privileged visit to 3 great cities of the forthcoming civilization. Whatever that means. Guess I gotta do the full course. But the course also does outline things that are gonna be more relevant in your day-to-day life, like finances. There's a lesson devoted to marriage and family, health. This course really does cover the full gamut. Now, my first thought was that the place was gonna be a scam, but the price, it's actually pretty reasonable. $50 enrollment fee, and then $35 per lesson. There's 12 in total. Like, hey, you know what? A lot of scumbags online that offer their corrupt, get-rich-quick courses are charging just mountains more than that. So, the Lemurian Fellowship may be a little odd, but they don't seem like they're in it to swindle people to me. And there's nothing on the site about divorcing yourself from your family or friends, and you can even do the course online. So, not getting any super in-your-face culty vibes either. This sounds like an ad for the website. I'm not saying it is. I just find this kind of interesting.
In 1888, Helena Blavatsky, a Russian-American author, released a book called The Secret Doctrine, which questioned whether or not Lemuria was actually the birthplace of all humanity rather than Africa, and she put forth the idea that all major religions are united by an ancient wisdom that stemmed from an original root race in a sequence of 7 root races that define the various and concrete stages of human development. The first was the Polarian race, ethereal beings with no physical bodies. The second, the Hyperborean race, shapeless asexuals that produced through natural cloning. The third race in the sequence was the Lemurian race, who lived alongside the dinosaurs and were intelligent giants with yellowish brown skin, flattened faces, small piercing eyes, and incredibly long arms and legs. The fourth race was the Atlanteans, the inhabitants of Atlantis, peak physical structure and incredibly advanced intelligence. We are the 5th race, the expansion race, spreading out across the globe. It is Blavatsky's belief that Lemuria was destroyed by fire. Volcanoes shattered the continent into small islands, including the Hawaiian Islands, and the rest of the lands slowly sank down into the sea.
Alright, so after finishing the Lemurian Fellowship course, you may be qualified to join the Lemurian Order, the headquarters of which are also located near Ramona, California, on a piece of 200-acre property referred to as the Gateway. Enticing. The Lemurian Fellowship, the Lemurian Order, the Gateway, this all sounds very high fantasy. So what do you do once you're part of the Order? Do you seek out ancient manuscripts and battle-toad people in the woods? Based on these names, I have very high hopes. Now, from most of what I read though, the Lemurian Order specializes in crafts. Aircraft? Are they making advanced aircraft based on ancient scientific knowledge from the lost civilization of Lemuria? Well, no. By crafts, they mean like music stands, They do cabinets, wooden beakers. They make a lot of stuff out of wood. Lamps are also on the list. It's handcrafted. That's why they're called crafts, I guess. So not quite as epic as what I was hoping for, but everyone does like handcrafted stuff. You don't get a lot of that these days.
James Churchward, a British writer and inventor, also had an incredible interest in the forgotten continent of Lemuria. But after translating a number of ancient Indian tablets, he came to the conclusion that the landmass had actually once been referred to as Mu. In 1931, Churchward published his fourth book, The Children of Mu. In it, he described Lemuria as having a population of about 60 million people, and he claimed that the continent stretched all the way from Hawaii in the north to Easter Island in the east and almost all the way up to Japan in the west. In fact, later in life, Churchward stated a belief that the sunken Yonagani monument, which we have mentioned before on this channel, might have actually been part of ancient Lemuria, and that the Nan Madol in Micronesia, which we have also mentioned before, might have been part of southern Lemuria as well. Furthermore, Churchward believed Easter Island to have been part of the landmass due to the fact that in ancient times it was home to 12,000 people, and it's highly unlikely that they would have been able to make that journey via canoe. It makes much more sense to Churchward, and starting to make much more sense to myself, and believers of Lemuria, that the inhabitants of Easter Island simply walked there instead. If they were Lemurians, and therefore giants, that would also explain how they would have created the famous Easter Island megastructures. Unlike Sclater and Blavatsky though, Churchward does not believe the continent slowly sank, but rather disappeared in a single night, when earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis triggered by a pole shift swallowed Lemuria whole in just a matter of hours.
So much like Helena Blavatsky talked about with the Lemurians living alongside dinosaurs, some do go as far to say that the Lemurians were full-on reptilian beings. As for their origin, one idea is that they came from another planet and settled on Earth, establishing the great civilization of Lemuria. These reptilians are said to have lived peacefully on this part of the land for thousands of years, building a highly advanced society, and when Lemuria was destroyed, more on that later, these reptilian beings didn't just disappear, instead they went underground, both literally and figuratively. Some conspiracy theorists even claim these reptilians dug deep into the earth, creating hidden cities and tunnels to continue their existence away from human eyes.
Going off of Helena Blavatsky's point about how all major religions are united by one ancient wisdom, American authors James Bramwell and William Scott Elliott both believe that the event that destroyed Lemuria greatly mirrored the Great Flood as is described in the Bible. But rather than the flood taking place in 2348 BC, they believe it took place roughly 11,600 years ago during the Younger Dryas, at the end of the last ice age, when Earth's climate began to shift, and the planet went from being cold, frigid, and completely glacial to a little bit warmer and more interglacial. During this time, ice sheets were melting rapidly, and sea levels were rising at alarming rates across the globe. Coastal areas were completely wiped out, and entire land masses, including Lemuria, were almost completely submerged underwater.
So Lemuria is often compared to Atlantis, but as you'll learn more about in a minute, there's said to be a connection between the two, a connection that turned out to lead to their eventual downfall. But before we get to that, let's talk about Bimini Road, an underwater rock formation that some say may be the remnants of a lost ancient civilization like Atlantis or Lemuria. It was discovered in 1968, but a few decades before, it was mentioned by an American mystic named Edgar Cayce, who wrote about how a road leading to Atlantis would be discovered in the years to come, writing that, quote, "A portion of the temples may yet be discovered under the slime of ages and seawater near Bimini. Expect it in 68 or 69. Yeah, that's actually pretty wild.
So by now we've heard quite a few theories lending reasoning to why Lemuria might have disappeared so many years ago, but there is one that we have not touched upon yet, and it is my personal favorite. Why? Well, because it includes the people of Atlantis, the humanoid godlike alien race of the Anunnaki, who, according to legend, created humans through DNA manipulation and then used them as slaves, and a great war between them two and the Lemurians. According to Daniel W. Fry, Atlanteans lived peacefully for almost 200,000 years before the the Anunnaki came to Earth and began influencing and corrupting their society. It was this corruption that led Atlanteans to the conclusion that it was their destiny to dominate and rule over all other existing tribes and communities on Earth. But they couldn't do it without the help of the Lemurians. Only problem was, the Lemurians didn't agree with this way of living, as they believed societies deserved the opportunity to thrive on their own. Because of this, a war broke out between the Atlanteans and the Lemurians sometime between 1004 and 9500 BC. The war was cataclysmic, and the amount of nuclear energy used in the battle caused the Earth to become unstable. The axis began to change and the Earth began to shift. At the end of the Great Battle, both civilizations had fallen and their lands had become lost to the seas. According to some, there were some survivors, Lemurian survivors, who went on to create a secret civilization that apparently still exists today in the mountains of California.
That's right, Hannah. If you want to witness the sights and sounds of the majestic ancient civilization of Lemuria yourself, you may want to travel to Mount Shasta, where there's said to be a hidden underground city. According to the legend, this subterranean world is home to the remnants of Lemuria, who took refuge there after their epic war with Atlantis. There have also been a bunch of UFO sightings around Mount Shasta, and some folks even claim to have encountered this underground city. One of the most famous stories comes from a prospector named J.C. Brown. So in 1904, while searching for gold, he stumbled on a cave that sloped down for 11 miles. And inside, he claimed to have found what looked like an entire city filled with artifacts like shields and weapons and the mummified remains of large humanoids, some towering at 10 feet tall. J.C. Brown kept his discovery a secret for years until he finally shared his story with a guy named John C. Root. John got a team together to search for this underground city, but on the day they were supposed to meet, J.C. Brown vanished without a trace and was never seen or heard from again.
If you are an ancient Lemurian reptile creature, comment down below.
And if you've ever done the Lemurian Fellowship course, please let us know how it is.
James is really keen.
If I had $500 handy, why not? It's not like you gotta give up a lot.
Cheers.
Catch you next time.